Exodus chapter 14. We are going to read from 21 to 31. From 21 to 31. Exodus chapter 14, verse 21 to 31. The Bible reads, "And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left." 23. "And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them in the midst of the sea, even all the Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen." 24. "And it came to pass that in the morning watch the Lord looked into the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariots' wheels, that they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel. For the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians." 26. "And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thy hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, and upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to his strength when the morning appeared. And the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea." 28. "And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea. After them, there remained not so much as one of them." 29. "But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left." 30. "Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the sea shore. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses." May the God bless the reading of his word. The theme for this message is there is a God in your wilderness. There is a God in your wilderness. A wilderness, Pastor, good morning. Yes, there is a God in your wilderness. Every person around has a wilderness of one form or the other. When you are in the wilderness, hope is dropped from where it's supposed to be the lowest basement. Because the wilderness is a place possibly where there is no water. A wilderness can be a place where there is no food and vegetation. It's a place where you find yourself in life once in a while, where trouble has surrounded you and hope is low. The wilderness is a point where you feel this thing will not work out. It's a moment where you feel, I'm finished. It's my last day. Even prayer, at times you may not pray because fear and anxiety will grip you. On the other thought, you would be asking yourself, does God really exist or is he around? But I came to encourage us this morning that even in that wilderness, God is there. God is there. Until you know that there is God around you 24/7, even in that situation that is critical, where things seem to have a dead end, I came to encourage you today that God is there. God is there. Many other times we will make phone calls to people who are supposed to help us. And when those people are supposed to help us, when they say they are unable to help, even the little appetite you had will go down. If it is in the night, even the dosing which you had will disappear. Because where you were hoping to be helped, that hope is not there at that particular time. You begin to think and begin to count rafters and trusses if the house has no ceiling. Because the wilderness is at hand. The message we have read is talking about Exodus. The children of Israel were permitted partially to live, because they lived for many years in bondage after Joseph had died in Egypt. And they were living under tasks from the Egyptians. And the tasks were too much. Son of God, freedom is better than comfort in bondage. It came to their crying that God heard that they were crying and they needed a man to deliver them. And they assigned Moses, who was taking care of animals of his father-in-law Jethro. And to begin negotiating for these people to have an exit. That is the brief background about the Egyptians. They were suffering in Egypt, the Israelites rather. They were suffering in Egypt. So they wanted to go to their promised land. Although they were let go, the Pharaoh and his men convened a meeting that why should we let the Israelites go who were our slaves? Who is going to work for us? So they began to arrange their army to pursue them. Many of the times people can give you freedom. They will say you are free to go. Meanwhile, their lives is still tied to you. They arranged the best army of Egypt at that time, 600. With their chariots to pursue the Israelites. As they continued pursuing them, see, God will always provide a way for you. In the day there was a pillar of cloud that was leading the Israelites. And in the night there was a pillar of fire that was guiding them as they were going. See, if you see a lion that has been pursuing you, getting closer, you will panic. So the children of Israel at this point saw Pharaoh and his men approaching them. And they became so terrified. As they were terrified, they began to complain to their leader Moses. That look Moses.
Honor Moses.
We told you that leave us alone here in Egypt. Although we are suffering, this place is better than to die in the wilderness. God, at times we can be used to suffering. You customize suffering to be normal, even when you are in bondage. And the main factor is food. It was food. In Egypt, they had food and water. But in the wilderness, there was little food and scarce water. Coupled by the coming of Pharaoh unto them, they began to cry. They began to cry. Children of God, when you are faithful, even in times like this, as you cry, your God will hear you. Your God will hear you. God began to instruct Moses. That tell them, the Egyptians they see today, they will see no more. Because today, I will get honor over Pharaoh and his horsemen. Command them to move forward. So they continue to move. They continue to move. Son of God, where they were going, there was no road. There was a sea. Hello? There was a sea. You are in problem. And you have been told to move forward. And where you are going, there is no road or way through to the other side. And the promised land is across a sea. They had no idea. All they thought they were going to die, all of them in the sea. They could not run backward. Because Pharaoh was coming and was ready to clear them off. As they approached the sea, God spoke to Moses. That stop crying unto me. What is in your hand? Children of God, there are some solutions which are not outside. There are some solutions which are not outside. Some solutions we have them here in Zambia. We have them here in Zambia. Through mining, through farming, through fishing, through honey harvest. Those are economic solutions which we have as a country. We can be crying for aid. But when the aiders come, they will implore you to start cultivating in their field. And you'll be very happy to say, I found a job. They don't come with land. Land is found here. Minerals are found here. Water is found here. Moses was told, what is in your hand? He said, I have the staff. He was told, lift up the staff. And when the staff was lifted, the sea began to part. The sea began to part. It parted throughout the night. And the water became wars, like as it is here. On the left and on the right. The Israelites were also questioning themselves. They have never seen such a thing. A river separating. God can make a way where there is no way for me. God can make a way where there is no way for me. Where things are impossible, God intervenes and there will be a way. I can imagine that particular day. They began to enter into the sea. And they were entering the sea. The Bible records that they were moving on dry ground. What a God we are standing in for. He's a wondrous God. He's a God who can change stories. He's a God who can remove impossibilities into possibilities. He's a God who can change your story, your desperation within a twinkling of an eye. Where there was no way,
He
he made a way. My brother, my sister, I still have come to this service today. I don't know what things you have deemed to be impossible in your life. I don't know what conclusion you have made for yourself. Because of the prevailing situation around, you have concluded the matter. And you are saying, for me it is finished. For God is not yet over. For God is not yet over. God has got a way where there is no way. Sarah thought she was too old, 90 years. That she not conceive. And she began to worry herself. She was crying that time. But time for her came to laugh when she was holding Isaac. Time and season does not quarrel or turn with our time. Our times, we may think it's too late. When God is saying we are just halfway, I will do it for you. The moment you give up on God, you are going to miss that opportunity. The children of Israel had no hope. They had no hope. Yesterday I heard on Livingston Road that some damage has been done on the road. And some people wanted to go to Mons, they could not go today. I said, what was the problem? They said, no, there's a damage on the road. A damage on the road. The road is not more than 10 meters. But people are afraid to go. Because the solution of man is limited to the size of the road. What about a sea? God told them, move on. And they obeyed, they began to move on. There are some things when God says, move on. In our physical nature, and our limited experience, we begin to say, but where can we go? There is no road beside. But he told them, move on. As they were moving, the sea parted. They entered into the dry ground of the sea. And they began to move. They began to move. They began to cross. See, when your enemies want to finish or perish on a particular day, without even knowing the science which is making the river to separate, God will make them follow you, so that they can perish at once. I pray for somebody this morning. Anyone who is following you blindly, let them continue following you, because they will cease in a minute. Amen. See, they followed. Without even common sense, they followed. You followed, you don't know even how the river started. This matter is divinity. It's not about idols. Your idols cannot separate the river. Because you are powerful among the people, you choose to follow divinity. They crossed, the Israelites crossed. Then in the watch of the night, God peeped through and saw the host of Egypt. And saw that they were following. He gave them a warning. He caused mud in their chariot tires so that they have difficulties in moving. Some of them said, let us go back. This war is not those people who are fighting. It is their God who is fighting us. And it's a great God. Let us go back. See, the spirit of Pharaoh is a stubborn spirit. They said we are going to follow them. They continued following them. When the Israelites crossed, God said now the time is up. They kept on following them. And then God ordered the angel that was leading them to move from the front to the back. As the angel came at the back, then God ordered Moses that lift up your staff. And Moses did just that. And the water began to close up. Some victories are not for you to follow. This victory was not for Pharaoh and his people. The dry ground was not meant for Pharaoh and his people. It was meant for the Israelites. Not for the enemy of Israel. Because God wanted them to perish, He hardened their hearts. And the water began to close. Some they wanted to escape in the middle of the sea. They began to float. If you can't swim in the middle of the sea, where do you go? They were dead and they were now all over. They all perished. And Israel saw the power of their God. The God we are here for is a power of God. There are people who have been fighting us without our consent. God has seized them. There are people who have been pursuing you. Before they catch you, God has opened the earth for them to be swallowed. Without your consent. This God we are serving is a powerful God. This was the God of Israel. This is the God we are here for. He's the one who works miracles where man's limitation has ended. In grade 3 minus 5, the answer we are taught was it can't. They are saying it can't. In grade 6 and 7, 3 minus 5, the answer we are told it is minus 2.
That answer is minus 2.
It was possible. So God is here to encourage us. This 2025. That there are things that has made you to live in a desert. Even in the desert, He was able to provide food. Even in the desert, He was able to provide water. Even in the desert, He was able to provide protection in the day and in the night. When God wants you to achieve something which will give glory to His name, the difficulties we are going to see as men, to God is part of the process. When we persevere and go through, it will become part of our testimony. There is no better testimony without going through a test. All testimonies have to go through a test. When you go through a test and you pass the test, it becomes a testimony. May the Lord bless the reading of His word. I've got 4 declarations, prophetic declarations for 2025, which are with me here. And I would like to